The hammer came down, and Garrett Whitmore's world broke apart like broken glass. $1. That's all they wanted for a person's life. Just $1 for the Cherokee girl standing on that wooden stage. Her dark eyes were empty with fear, and her small hands were tied behind her back. She couldn't be older than 16, the same age his Emily would be in 8 years. Garrett pushed his back against the bar's wooden wall. His rough hands were shaking as he watched the crowd of drunk miners and card players laughing, pointing, and making mean jokes. The girl's ripped dress barely covered her hurt shoulders, and when she looked up, searching for any face that might be kind, Garrett saw something that made his chest feel like it was falling apart. She looked exactly like Emily would look in a few years. Same pretty face, same scared eyes, same way of holding her head up high, even when the world was being mean to her. The man selling people, a greasy guy with gold teeth, was getting mad. Come on, men, just $1 for this fine Cherokee girl, straight from where her people live, never been touched. Garrett's jaw squeezed so tight he thought his teeth might break. He'd come to Deadwood to sell his silver and make enough money to give Emily a better life back in Colorado. But now, watching this terrible thing happen, all he could think about was his daughter's face when she asked him last month why some people were mean to others just because they looked different. A fat man in a round hat raised his hand. $1. The crowd cheered, but then Garrett heard something that made his blood feel like ice. The girl whispered something in broken English so quiet only he could hear from where he stood. Please, someone help me. The same words Emily had cried the night her mother died, having her when she was scared and alone, and didn't understand why her mama wouldn't wake up. Garrett's hand moved to his gun without thinking. He had exactly $47 in his pocket. His whole life savings, meant for Emily's future. But as he looked at that scared girl, he realized something that would change everything. He was about to do something that would either save 2 lives, or destroy them both. Because what he didn't know yet was that the man running this people selling wasn't just any bad guy. He was the most dangerous outlaw in the Dakota Territory, and he'd kill anyone who tried to stop his business. But the girl on that stage had just looked right at Garrett, and in that moment, he saw his daughter's future written in her tears. Garrett's voice cut through the smoky air like a knife. $2. The bar went completely quiet. Every head turned toward him, and suddenly Garrett felt like a rabbit surrounded by wolves. The man with gold teeth smiled, but his eyes were cold as winter. Metal. Well, looks like we got ourselves a fight, boys. The greasy man pointed toward Garrett. Step forward, stranger. Let's see your money. Garrett's boots felt like they weighed a ton as he pushed through the crowd. These weren't just miners and drifters. He could see the hard faces of killers, the kind of men who'd shoot you for looking at them wrong. But he kept walking, his hand staying near his gun, until he reached the front. Up close, the girl looked even younger. Her Cherokee face was delicate, almost like a child's. And when she saw him, something flickered in her dark eyes. Hope, maybe, or maybe just confusion about why this stranger with the kind face was willing to pay for her. You got $2. Mr. The man's breath smelled like whiskey and rotten teeth. Garrett pulled out 2 silver coins, holding them where everyone could see. Right here. But then the fat man in the round hat stood up, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. $3. The crowd went wild with cheers and yelling. Garrett's heart pounded against his chest. $3 was already more than most working men made in a week. But when he looked at the girl again, she mouthed a single word that hit him like a punch to the stomach. Papa. She was calling him Papa. This scared child, sold like an animal, was looking at him like he might save her. $4, Garrett said, his voice steady even though a storm was raging inside him. The man with gold teeth smiled bigger. Now we're talking. $4 from the man with a good heart. But then something happened that made Garrett's blood run cold. A man near the back of the room stood up slowly, and the whole bar seemed to hold its breath. He was tall, dressed in black, with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard every word. $10. The man selling people went pale. $10. Mr. Cain. Cain. Garrett had heard that name whispered in fear across 3 territories. Silas Cain, the man who'd burned whole towns for fun, who collected women like toys and threw them away like broken things. Garrett looked at his remaining money. $43, everything he had left in the world. Emily's future, her schooling, their chance at a better life. But then the Cherokee girl looked at him again, and this time tears were running down her face. She knew who Cain was. She knew what $10 from him meant. Garrett's hand tightened around his money. $15. The bar went crazy. Someone shouted. Someone else laughed. But all Garrett could hear was the sound of his own heart pounding, and one terrible thought echoing in his mind. He'd just started a war with the most dangerous man in the territory. And now there was no going back. Silas Cain's laugh was like rocks grinding against glass. He stepped forward, his hand resting easily on the white handle of his gun, and the crowd moved away from him like water. $15, he repeated. His scarred face twisted into something that might have been funny. You know what, stranger? I like a man with strong feelings. He paused, letting his cold gray eyes stare into Garrett's. $25. Garrett felt his world spinning. $25, more than half his life savings. But as he looked at the Cherokee girl, he saw something that broke his heart completely. She had stopped crying. Not because she felt safer, but because she'd given up hope. The same look Emily had when the doctor told them her mama wasn't coming back. $30, Garrett said, his voice barely above a whisper. Cain's smile disappeared. You're starting to make me mad, friend. I'm not your friend, Garrett replied, surprised by his own courage. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Men were backing away, clearing space, knowing that blood was about to spill. The man selling people looked like he wanted to crawl under the stage and disappear. But then something unexpected happened. A voice from the crowd called out, "What's so special about this one, Cain? You got plenty of girls already." Cain turned, his face getting dark. "This one's different. She's the daughter of Chief Running Bear. The Cherokee will pay a lot of money to get her back." His smile returned, cold and mean. "After I'm done with her, of course." Garrett's stomach felt sick. This wasn't just about slavery. It was about ransom, about hurting a whole tribe through their chief's daughter. And when Cain was finished destroying her, he'd sell her back to her people for even more money. The girl's eyes met Garrett's again, and he saw something in them that reminded him of Emily's strength. The way his daughter faced the world, despite losing her mother. This Cherokee girl had the same fire, the same refusal to break completely. $40, Garrett said, pulling out nearly everything he had left. The crowd gasped. $40 could buy a horse, a month's worth of supplies, a new start anywhere in the territory. But Cain just shook his head, that terrible smile spreading across his scarred face. "You know what? Keep your money, stranger." He signaled to two of his men, rough-looking killers with dead eyes. "I'll just take her anyway." The men started moving toward the stage, but Garrett stepped between them and the girl. His hand found his gun, and he realized with crystal clarity that he was about to die. But as he stood there protecting a girl he'd never met, he thought about Emily asking him once what it meant to be brave. Now he knew. Being brave meant doing the right thing even when it would cost you everything you had left to lose. Garrett's gun cleared its holder faster than he'd ever drawn in his life. The metallic click of the hammer being pulled back echoed through the silent bar like thunder. "That's far enough," he said, his gun trained on Cain's chest. Cain's men froze, their hands hovering over their own weapons. But Cain himself just laughed, the sound that made Garrett's skin crawl. "You got guts, I'll give you that. But you're outnumbered 8-1, and I know for a fact you got a little girl back home who needs her daddy." Cain's eyes glittered with evil. "Emily, isn't it? About 8 years old. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Likes to play with that little wooden horse you carved her." Garrett's blood turned to ice. How could Cain possibly know about Emily? But then he remembered the miners who'd passed through Colorado last month. The questions they'd asked, the way they'd seemed interested in his family. "That's right, friend, I make it my business to know things. And right now, I know your little girl is all alone in that cabin, just waiting for daddy to come home." Cain took a step closer. "Be a shame if something happened to her while you were playing hero." The Cherokee girl whispered something urgent in her own language, but Garrett couldn't understand the words. All he could think about was Emily, alone and helpless, while he stood here pointing a gun at the most dangerous man in 3 territories. "Here's what's going to happen," Cain continued, his voice soft as silk and twice as dangerous. "You're going to put that gun down, walk out of here, and forget you ever saw this girl. And in return, I won't send my boys to Colorado to pay your daughter a visit." Garrett's hand shook. Emily's face flashed before his eyes. Her laugh when he told her bedtime stories. The way she hugged him so tight when storms scared her. How she always saved him the last bite of her candy. But then he looked at the Cherokee girl and saw something that nearly broke him. She was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face, trying to tell him something with her eyes. She was telling him to save himself, to go home to his daughter, even though it meant she would suffer terrible things. The same selfless love Emily showed when she gave away her favorite doll to a girl whose house had burned down. "You got 10 seconds to decide," Cain said. "Your daughter's life or this savage's. Choose." Garrett closed his eyes for just a moment. And in that darkness, he heard Emily's voice from last Sunday, when they were reading her mother's Bible together. "Papa, why did Jesus die for people who were mean to him?" "Because sometimes, little bird love means protecting people, even when it costs you everything." When Garrett opened his eyes, his gun was steady as a rock. I already chose, but what happened next would haunt him forever. Because in that moment of brave defiance, he heard something that made his blood freeze in his veins. The sound of horses coming to the bar at full speed, and the voice that called out from outside made Cain's face light up with pure evil joy. "Boss, we got the girl from Colorado, just like you wanted." Garrett's world collapsed. Through the bar's dirty windows, he could see 2 of Cain's men getting off their horses. And between them, her small hands tied with rope, was Emily, his 8-year-old daughter. Her blonde hair was messy, her blue dress was torn, her eyes were wide with terror as they dragged her toward the bar doors. "No," Garrett whispered, his gun shaking for the first time. Cain's smile was pure poison. "Surprised? I told you, I make it my business to know things. Soon as you rode into town, I sent my boys to fetch your little girl. Insurance, you might say." The bar doors burst open and Emily stumbled inside, pushed by a scarred man with dead eyes. When she saw her father, she cried out, "Papa! They said you were in trouble." "They said." "Shut up, girl," the man snarled, yanking her rope so hard she nearly fell. Garrett's finger tightened on the trigger. But Cain raised his hand casually. "Easy, friend. One wrong move and both these little girls die. Your daughter and the Cherokee." Emily's eyes found the girl on the stage, and even through her terror, Garrett saw something he recognized. The same caring her mother had possessed. Emily looked at the Cherokee girl's torn dress, her tied hands, her frightened face, and suddenly understood what was happening. "Papa," Emily whispered, "that girl needs help." Cain laughed. "Smart kid. Too bad she won't live to see tomorrow." He gestured to his men. "Here's the new deal. I keep both girls. You can choose which one dies first." The Cherokee girl was crying now, not for herself, but looking at Emily with heartbroken eyes. 2 children, both innocent, both trapped because of Garrett's choice. To interfere, Garrett stood frozen, his gun still pointed at Cain, but his mind racing through impossible calculations. If he shot Cain, the other men would kill both girls instantly. If he gave up, Cain would probably kill them anyway, just to make a point. But then, Emily did something that changed everything. She looked directly at her father and said the words that would either save them all or damn them forever. "Papa, remember what Mama used to say? Sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing. If you were Garrett, what would you do? Shoot Cain and hope his men hesitate long enough to save the girls? Or drop your gun and beg for mercy, knowing Cain never shows any? Tell me in the comments. I need to know which choice you'd make, because what Garrett decided next would determine whether 2 innocent souls live to see another sunrise." The silence stretched like a tight wire, every person in that bar holding their breath, waiting to see if a father's love could overcome impossible odds. And in that moment of perfect tension, Garrett made his choice. Garrett dropped his gun. The gun hit the wooden floor with a sound, like a death bell, and Cain's laughter filled the bar like smoke from hell itself. "Smart man," Cain said, but his eyes were already calculating new cruelties. "Now, kick it away." Garrett's boot sent his gun sliding across the floor, and with it went his last hope of fighting his way out. But as he raised his hands in surrender, he caught Emily's eye and saw something that nearly broke him. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was proud of him. "Papa did the right thing," she whispered to the Cherokee girl, loud enough for Garrett to hear. Cain gestured to his men. "Tie him up with the others. We'll have ourselves a little auction. 2 girls for the price of 1, and Daddy gets to watch." But as the rope tightened around Garrett's wrists, something unexpected happened. The Cherokee girl began singing a haunting melody in her native language that seemed to fill every corner of the bar. Her voice was pure and strong, cutting through the smoke and evil like sunlight through storm clouds. Emily listened with wide eyes and then, impossibly, began humming along. She didn't know the words, but somehow she understood the song. It was about family, about protection, about never giving up even when darkness surrounded you. "Shut them up," Cain snarled. But his men seemed hesitant. There was something about the girl's song that made even hardened killers pause. That's when Garrett realized what the Cherokee girl was doing. She wasn't just singing. She was calling for help. Her voice carried beyond the bar walls, into the night, where someone might hear and understand. She's signaling, Garrett whispered to himself. But Cain heard him. Signaling who? Cain's face darkened. There ain't nobody coming to help you. But then they all heard it. The sound that made every man in the bar reach for their guns. War cries echoing across the hills, getting closer with each passing second. Cherokee warriors riding hard toward town. The girls from Chief Running Bear's family, someone whispered. If they find her like this, ... Cain's confidence wavered for the first time. How many of them? Sounds like the whole war party, another man said, his voice shaking. The Cherokee girl's song grew stronger, more defiant, and Emily joined in with her own voice. The two children, harmonizing in a melody that seemed to shake the very walls. Outside, the war cries grew louder, closer, and suddenly the bar felt less like a fortress and more like a trap. Cain grabbed his gun and pointed it at Emily's head. They want their girl back. Fine, but I'm taking yours with me. Garrett lurched forward against his ropes, but it was too late. Cain was already backing toward the rear exit, using Emily as a human shield. His gun pressed against her temple. Papa, Emily cried out, but her voice was steady, brave. Tell them I wasn't scared. And as Cain dragged her toward the door, Garrett realized the Cherokee girl was still singing, but now her song had changed. It was no longer a call for help. It was a war song. The Cherokee warriors burst through the bar's front doors like a force of nature, their war paint gleaming in the lamplight, their tomahawks and rifles ready for blood. At their head rode Chief Running Bear himself, his weathered face carved from stone, his dark eyes burning with righteous fury when he saw his daughter on the stage. The bar erupted in chaos. Cain's men opened fire, but they were drunk, unprepared, and facing warriors who had trained for battle since childhood. The Cherokee moved like shadows, striking fast and disappearing into the smoke, their war cries echoing off the walls. But Garrett's eyes were fixed on the back door, where Cain had dragged Emily. Through the gunfire and screaming, he could hear his daughter's voice, still brave but getting farther away. Papa, the Cherokee girl. Help her first. Even now, even terrified and kidnapped, Emily was thinking of someone else's pain before her own. Just like her mother would have done. Chief Running Bear's knife cut through Garrett's ropes in one swift motion. You tried to save my daughter, the chief said in perfect English, his voice like distant thunder. Now we save yours. The Cherokee girl leaped down from the stage and ran to her father, speaking rapidly in their language. But instead of taking her to safety, Chief Running Bear listened, nodded grimly, and then looked at Garrett with something like respect. She says you gave everything to protect her, a stranger's child. She says your spirit is Cherokee. The chief handed Garrett his gun. My daughter also says yours is in great danger. Outside they could hear Cain's voice shouting orders to his remaining men as they prepared to ride out with Emily. Garrett checked his gun. 5 bullets left. Not enough to fight a running battle against professional killers. But Chief Running Bear smiled, an expression that was both terrifying and reassuring. You will not fight alone. The war party emerged from the bar, and Garrett saw something that made his heart race with hope. These weren't just warriors, they were fathers, brothers, men who understood what it meant to protect the innocent, and they had come prepared for war. Chief Running Bear's daughter spoke again, pointing toward the back of the building, and her father nodded. Cain has taken your child to the old mine shaft, 3 miles north. He thinks to make his stand there, use the girl as protection. The chief's eyes hardened. He does not know Cherokee justice. Garrett swung up onto a spare horse, his hand steady on the reins. What's Cherokee justice? Simple, Chief Running Bear replied, kicking his own mount into a gallop. Those who steal children do not live to steal again. As they rode into the night, Garrett could hear Emily's voice carried on the wind, still singing the Cherokee girl's song. Still brave, still fighting. But what they found at the mineshaft would test every ounce of courage they possessed. Because Cain had one final desperate card to play. The old mineshaft stood like a mouth in the mountainside, dark and forbidding under the stars. Cain had chosen his position well. The narrow entrance meant only one man could approach at a time, and he had Emily positioned where any shot might hit her instead of him. That's far enough. Cain's voice echoed from inside the tunnel. I got the girl right here. One step closer, and she dies. Garrett's heart hammered as he got off his horse, his gun ready but useless with Emily in the line of fire. Chief Running Bear and his warriors spread out silently, but they all faced the same impossible problem. Papa. Emily's voice drifted from the darkness. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. Even now, his brave little girl was trying to comfort him. Garrett closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of her mother, wishing she was here to see how strong their daughter had become. What do you want, Cain? Garrett called out. Safe passage out of the territory, and $50 for my trouble. Garrett almost laughed. After all this death and violence, Cain still thought it was about money. I don't have $50. Then I guess your little girl dies. But Cain's words were cut off by a sound that made everyone freeze. Emily, sweet, H, was laughing. You're really stupid. Her voice rang out clear and fearless. Don't you hear them coming? Hear what? Cain snarled. But then he heard it too. More war cries. But these were different. Younger voices, higher pitched, coming from above. Chief Running Bear smiled grimly in the darkness. Cherokee children, he whispered to Garrett. My daughter taught them the old ways. They moved through mountain tunnels like smoke. The mine had multiple entrances, passages that connected deep underground, and Cherokee children, who knew every hidden path in these mountains, were already inside, surrounding Cain without him knowing it. Papa, Emily called out again. But this time her voice was moving, getting closer to the entrance. I'm coming out. He can't see me anymore. Cain's curses echoed from the tunnel, followed by the sounds of a struggle. But it was too late. Emily burst from the mine entrance and ran straight into Garrett's arms, while behind her, Cherokee children emerged from hidden passages like avenging spirits. Cain stumbled out of the tunnel, his gun waving wildly, but he was surrounded. Chief Running Bear stepped forward, his rifle trained on the outlaw's chest. You stole our daughter. You stole his daughter. Now you answer for your crimes. Wait, Cain gasped, raising his hands. I got money. I got connections. I can make you rich. Chief Running Bear looked at Garrett, then at Emily safe in her father's arms, then at his own daughter standing proud and free beside her new friend. Some things, the chief said quietly, are worth more than money. The shot echoed across the mountains like thunder. 3 days later, Garrett stood outside his cabin in Colorado, watching Emily and Chief Running Bear's daughter play together, their laughter mixing with the mountain breeze. The Cherokee girl, whose name was Morningstar, had asked to stay with them while her people made winter camp nearby. Emily looked up at her father with eyes full of wisdom beyond her years. Papa, did we do the right thing? Garrett knelt down and hugged both girls close. Sometimes, little bird, the right thing costs everything you have, but it gives you something worth more than money could ever buy. What's that? The chance to look at yourself in the mirror and know that when it mattered most, you chose love over fear. If you're enjoying these stories of courage and redemption from the Old West, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There are many more tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things waiting to be told. Now click on the video on the screen to hear a story even better than this one, with a twist so powerful you won't forget it anytime soon. Click on the video.